Was Kenjaku's death a disappointment for you guys? I think it's about time we start talking about this and actually give ourselves a little therapy session regarding his death. I just want to have an open discussion with you guys and actually gauge on what the fan base is feeling regarding Kenjaku's death. Are you guys satisfied with the way his character ended, or do you feel he still has more to offer in the story? Kenjaku died in chapter 243 with Yuta slicing his head clean off. For me, he was the ideal person to finish off Kenjaku. In Jujutsu Kaisen 0, Geto's main goal was to use Rika to create a world of only the strongest Jujutsu sorcerers. By declaring such a plan, he made an instant rival with Yuta. And that only goes on further into the story, as back in chapter 174, Yuta says that he will be the one that kills Kenjaku, as he doesn't want Gojo killing his best friend for a second time. So for me, it makes sense that it is Yuta who is the one to deal the final blow to Kenjaku. Kenjaku is possessing Geto's body, who already had a rivalry with Yuta, and now Kenjaku is controlling the very person that Yuta already had a problem with. Gojo killed Geto the first time, saving Yuta's life more or less, and now Yuta will be the one to defeat Kenjaku and release Gojo from the prison realm, which was the main goal at that time in the story. So it was a nice little parallel that was going on between these four characters. Okay, now Yuta defeating Kenjaku, I'm all for it, but the way he just got thrown to the side without having a final epic fight, for me, was disappointing. Now, I know Takaba is a funny character, and to be fair to Kenjaku, even though he is definitely a villain, you see in moments throughout the story that he's being light-hearted, like when he was playing Game of Life back in the first season, or those times when they were in Dagon's domain expansion and they were just chilling on the beach. As evil as Kenjaku is, you saw those moments of light where he can take you back and actually consider if he is a serious villain or not. Even Sukuna had those light moments at times when he was fighting off against Mahoraga in the Shibuya incident arc, where he was eating popcorn during the fight to make it look like Sukuna wasn't taking the fight that seriously. But even though Sukuna had a few light moments in between, it doesn't mean he's not being taken seriously as a villain. Sukuna right now is fighting off against everyone, and I mean everyone. We have characters like Miguel, who we haven't seen since Jujutsu Kaisen 0, make a return and fight off against Sukuna. Gojo, Kashimo, Yuji, Yuta, Rika, Higuruma, Kusakabe, Miguel, Maki, all top fighters in the Jujutsu world, which Sukuna has dominated in fighting them. And in Gojo, Kashimo and Higuruma's case, he actually defeated, and to be fair, Kusakabe as well last time I checked. And Sukuna is still not dead. He is still fighting against everyone. If he were to die right now, you could actually look back and say, yeah, Sukuna had an epic death because he fought against everyone. It took everyone at their strongest to fight him, and it still wasn't enough. Sukuna still took down the previous generation's GOAT in Kashimo and the modern day strongest sorcerer in the world in Gojo, which is a massive feat for Sukuna. But then when you compare it to Kenjaku, it doesn't really compare in terms of epicness. Now obviously what I find epic and what other fans find epic is subjective. However, in my opinion, if you imagine Sukuna dying in the next chapter in the hands of Yuji, you then automatically compare his death to Kenjaku's, because he's also the other big bad villain. It took everyone to defeat Sukuna. We even saw Sukuna's Heian era form. We saw Sukuna go all out. But with Kenjaku, he died fighting against Takaba. Now, I know Takaba didn't actually do the fatal blow to Kenjaku, and it was Yuta, which, as I said earlier, I am happy that it was him who did it. But look at how that looks when you look through the glasses of Kenjaku being one of the big two villains of Jujutsu Kaisen. He was fighting this comedic fight against Takaba and was distracted enough to allow Yuta to slice his head off. A few chapters later, we saw Sukuna fighting off against Rika, Yuji and Yuta at the same time. But you have Kenjaku be distracted by a comedic relief character in Takaba to distract him long enough for him to be defeated. Really guys? Did we just see, in truly, Takaba defeat Kenjaku? A villain that's been the puppet master behind the Jujutsu world, who manipulated the world and opened up the Culling Games, as well as be an integral part in Yuji's heritage and birth. All I'm saying is that I feel Kenjaku deserved a better death. A villain that we have been following since the beginning, dying like this doesn't really sit well with me. Kenjaku was always the villain, even back in the earlier arcs when Sukuna was inside of Yuji. Yes, Sukuna is the eventual powerhouse of a villain, and whenever he took over Yuji's body, it would be an absolute madness. But we knew he had a time limit when he was in Yuji's body. We knew he would be back inside and Yuji would take back control of his body. But we still had Kenjaku as the main villain, as we see him have meetings with world leaders conspiring to use cursed energy for war and for his own goals that he never truly mentioned what they were. Kenjaku was the focal point in those arcs, not Sukuna. Sukuna was lurking in the shadows, and we didn't even see Sukuna during the Culling Games. We saw his last appearance in the Shibuya incident arc at the beginning of chapter 120 when he showed Yuji the damage he caused in Shibuya, and then his actual reappearance, we saw him in chapter 212. That's 92 chapters later, almost 100 chapters, guys. I'm not counting mentions of Sukuna or images of Sukuna when people like Angel mentioning that Sukuna is the disgraced one. I'm talking full-on appearance from Sukuna, and for a long time, we didn't see Sukuna, and even before the Shibuya incident arc, we hardly saw Sukuna. So it felt like Sukuna was the boogeyman lurking in the background of the story. We know he is a powerful threat, but he's locked away in the shadows, whilst the main threat right in front of us is Kenjaku. Kenjaku was the big puppet master and was known as a massive threat to the Jujutsu sorcerers, whilst Sukuna was the villain lurking in the shadows that will be unleashed once every blue moon. But ever since Sukuna took over Megami's body, I feel the roles have reversed. It's Sukuna who is now front and center as the main big villain, whilst Kenjaku is the one in the shadows. Not only has Kenjaku taken a background role ever since Sukuna returned, but it feels like Kenjaku is literally in Sukuna's shadow. Sukuna has taken all the limelight as a villain from Kenjaku, in my opinion, which is a shame because Kenjaku was the driving force behind the villains in this story, and because of that, I feel he has so much more to offer in the story. The lore behind Yuji's family and his ties with Sukuna, Kenjaku has a lot to do with that. Kenjaku also must have influenced other moments in time within the world of Jujutsu Kaisen. So what else has he done? There's so much history with Kenjaku that we can learn from, and there's an opportunity for the world building within the story with the return of Kenjaku. Kenjaku is a master manipulator and has taken over many people's bodies, such as Geto's and Yuji's mom, to name a few. But even within the big three clans, the Gojo clan, the Zenin clan, the Kamo clan, did Kenjaku influence the battles and wars between these families in order to weaken the brotherhood and togetherness within the Jujutsu sorcerers and the big three families? Why does Kenjaku want to see the monster version of Master Tengen merged with the people of Japan? Why does he want to achieve this goal? Why is this his goal? Does he just want to see destruction? There's so many questions that need to be answered regarding Kenjaku's character. I feel his death might have been underwhelming on purpose. Akutami might have just taken Kenjaku out of the picture for us to solely focus on Sukuna. But then when he returns, it will be a major shock and plot twist. For me, I think he should return. Kenjaku has so much to offer to the story of Jujutsu Kaisen, and he deserves a proper death. But let me go over to you guys now. And guys, be honest with me here. Did you find Kenjaku's death disappointing? Let me know in the comments down below. And of course, don't forget to subscribe. The Shaman Tribe.